You're an
So,
impresario, and that must be
yeah.
Shelley. Hello, Shelley.
Hi, RC. You like to be called RC, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, I'm just tongue-tied. I'm just drinking you in. Uh, I
Yes,
was.
so we are live
It,
right now. I just want to introduce us because people are watching, and here we are chit chatting. And I'd like to make some introductions. Welcome to the Lizzie Borden Tea and Murder podcast, and we're happy you guys are here. Our guests tonight are R.C. Matheson, who is an American writer and horror fiction. He writes horror fiction and screenplays. He is an author of over 100 short stories of psychological horror. In addition, he's written Dystopia and Zoopraxis, which I think are marked as Amazon's #1 bestsellers. He
yeah.
also adapted Stephen King's short story Battleground, which was made into an iconic episode of the TNT series Nightmares and Dreamscapes that won 2 Emmys. And I'm so happy to have Richard here tonight. We
Hello.
also have Craig Spector as a best-selling novelist, screenwriter, and musician. The book The Light at the End became a New York Times bestseller. From there, he went on to write more books with millions of copies in print and reprints in 9 different languages.
Hmm.
In addition, he's a screenwriter for feature film and television, and I know him best for The Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. And of course, my beautiful co-host Shelley Dietz, who has been on in the Lizzie Borden camp for over 20 years, 18 of those which she was a tour guide at the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. And she has her own website, Lizzie Borden Warps and Weps, which offers a ton of information about the case. Thank you, Shelley. You're a great host, and I'm so
Good
happy
to
to
be
have
here.
thankful to have you on with us, and of course to all our fans and friends of the Lizzie Borden case. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, where do we begin? I know you guys are sort of familiar with the case, so we're not expecting you to be experts at all. But this show is more about writing for film, screenwriting. We want to get into that. So I want to start out by saying that I've always looked at this case as unsolved crime, like sort of in the same category as O.J. Simpson. You know, when you talk about comparing those two cases, the Lizzie Borden case and O.J. Simpson are very similar in that both were tried and acquitted. Both had money to hire some great lawyers. Both cases had shabby investigations contaminating the crime scene, and both came up with scenarios that after they were acquitted, OJ, I think, did a TV interview saying, well, if I did do it, this is how I would do it. And Lizzie Borden, ironically, also did that too in the Women's Home Journal in Boston with an interview with Mary Livermore, whom a lot of people aren't really familiar with that interview, but she really implicated herself in that interview too. Shelley, are you familiar with that one?
Well, somewhat. Yes, Mary Livermore was one of lady ahead of her
Did everything
time,
freeze?
and
Yeah.
Hello.
sort of a champion, I think, of Lizzie's. But
Did you freeze already, Richard?
continue.
No,
We'll
you're
see where
there,
this is
right?
going.
So anyway, our first question. Oh, Shelley, like we have these
Shelly
issues
drop out.
sometimes. Yeah, she goes out and then
There
comes
she
back in.
is.
Richard, are you there? If you're not, you should just log out and come back in. Are you there or no? Yes, no, Richard. Hello. Oh,
I
you know
don't
what?
think he can hear you.
Yeah, there he goes.
There
He
you go.
knows. He knows the routine. So, yeah, Shelley. When Richard gets back, we'll pose the first question we have on our list. Um, yeah, sometimes this is a little kooky. Yay! Welcome back, Richard. Can't hear him. Hmm.
Oh no. Technology at its finest.
So, Richard, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? You can hear us, but we can't hear you. What's that, Kenny? Shelley's the same? All right. I say
Can you hear
log.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. I say, Shelley, log
Okay.
out and log back in again. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Log out and log back in
like a
again. Oh my
nightmare.
gosh.
It's like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a
It's just
nightmare
the
in
two of
Elms. It's a
us now.
nightmare in the Borden Street. God. So look, Craig, Shelley, testing 1, 2, Shelley. Oh no,
Still can't
no,
hear 'em.
I can't. Why can't we hear them? They're stuck in a what? You got it? Is it us, Kenny? So what do you want to do? Yeah, it's on our end. He's fixing something that is technically doomed. So Craig, while you're here, and then he's gonna give me instructions on what to do. So okay. Oh wow, this is nice. I love this is comical. It's like,
Okay. Wow.
so what, Kenny? Are they back?
How about now?
Oh yeah,
Now?
we hear you
Yeah.
now. Oh
No?
yeah, everybody's
You
here.
can hear me
Oh
now?
my
Oh,
God.
hey.
That was
Okay.
the funniest thing I've ever seen. So while we have you,
Was that a squeak toy Craig was using
Yeah.
to
Yes.
cover my end of it? Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
yeah.
this is like such the best interview yet. So Shelley,
Yeah.
do you want to pose the first question you have, please? Thank you.
Oh, I have
Yeah.
so many questions.
Yeah,
Let's
we're
see.
loaded.
Okay, I think I'd like to jump to the last question first.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have viewed lots of films based on true crime. There have been some great ones, and Cold Blood springs to mind. So, in your opinion, um, how should I say this? What are some of the best films that have honored the history of the case without adding fictionalizing a lot of the facts, to suit a script? Some of the better films based on true crime that you guys have seen.
Well, I agree with you. For me, the best one would be In Cold Blood.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just going to say
Uh,
that was the first one that popped into my
Is that
mind.
with Truman Capote?
Uh,
Hmm.
well, Truman Capote wrote the book.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, and then Truman Capote. It's an interesting backstory because he developed a crush on one of the murderers, Perry, I think it was,
mhm.
and so he became quite obsessed with it. I remember my father read the book and was really overwhelmed by it. And there was one sequence, I guess, the murderers were going outside. I think it was the Clutter family. I think they were the
Hmm.
ones that were murdered. They were walking outside the house and they looked down into the bedroom and they could see the gap between the drapes and the windowsill, and they could see the people sleeping. So my father always had the drapes folded up on the windowsill, weighted down. Okay, I remember asking him. He said, "Oh, it's because of In Cold Blood. It's in
Yes.
Cold Blood." Yeah,
Then
wasn't
it
there
was
a
done well.
wasn't there
but
a
it's a.
film
ve- I
made
mean, it's a remarkable book and a remarkable film.
Yeah.
wasn't there a film made later on? I think it was with if memory serves with Philip Seymour Hoffman that was
Yeah,
about Truman Capote
he
uh,
played. That's
researching
how
in
great
Cold
an
Blood
actor
and
he was.
yeah,
I
and then
mean, who would
having
have
the
ever
sort of having
cast
that
him as Truman
crush,
Capote? And he was great. He was great as
Yeah, he
Truman.
was. He
Yeah.
was amazing. Well, and
Yeah.
the follow up to that, I think we're on the same wavelength. Uh, do you think it's justified for a screenwriter to take liberties with a historical scenario or character? Um, Titanic was an entertaining film. Cameron, you can't beat it. Sets, costumes, casting. But there was so much fiction in a historical setting.
And just so
I,
you know, she's a Titanic historian, just so you know.
Oh, well,
yeah,
what comes to my mind is Oliver Stone when he did JFK,
hmm
Mm,
Ah,
yeah.
where he took liberties, let's say,
yeah,
and it was, I think there was a lot of outcry about what he did, that he
exactly.
had
And
he'd
so
rewritten
if he
history in
had
some
to
way.
approach,
Yeah.
that was
am
kind
I
of at the
coming
beginning of
through?
his.
Am I
Yes.
frozen again?
No, no, no,
No.
you're good.
No.
Okay,
No, you're there.
let me
We're just
come back.
interrupting you. Yep.
Oh,
Where'd
there
she
she
go?
goes.
She's gone.
Well, anyway, you were going to say, Craig, something about.
That was sort of at the beginning of Oliver Stone's "I am on a lifelong bad acid trip" sort of perspective that he brought to all of his films,
It's frozen again.
because
Yeah.
JFK just went so far out into the
Mhm.
off the reservation. It was just way off in the weeds with some of its speculations, and
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I think that a certain amount of writers have to be granted a certain amount of creative liberty, but I also think that writers, especially when you're dealing with non-fictional material, you have an obligation to the people who actually lived it
hmm
to kind of do right by them and not just abuse the characters of actual real living people just in order to tell your story. So
It's
I think it's a
also
constant
I
balancing act.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
also
No, go
Craig.
ahead.
I agree with Craig, and I think the key thing is that you're dealing in a storyline that has a huge amount of personal pain and
hmm hmm
loss,
Yeah.
and so it isn't just taking a historical event that has very little of that. You're taking a time of trauma, and to somehow redefine that, I think is not. I think there's a sort of um immorality about that in a way.
Mm,
Yeah, I
wow,
agree with you. Yes.
that's really deep, Richard, because a lot of the movies that come out now, I never thought of it that way. You know, you're dealing with the actual families and the trauma, because a lot of, well, the last Lizzie Borden movie that came out was a piece of crap, in my opinion, because they were only looking to for shock value of these women, these very famous actresses being nude, and you see them, doing the murders, while they're nude, and they had this whole side story of them being lesbians, and or is
Well,
that is that right?
if there's nudity, it's different. Then I take it all back. No, but I mean, what where there's an outcry right now is in the film about the Gucci family. The
hmm
family
Oh
is
Oh,
yeah.
that new movie, the
very
new
angry.
movie.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
very angry about it. And
They are none to
how
be
would any of
praised.
us feel if our family was misrepresented? We'd all feel outraged,
hmm
especially if we were ashamed of
Oh,
them.
sure, sure.
hmm
Well, I think the one thing about the Lizzie Borden family is that, we're making movies for something that we never lived. I mean, the Gucci fam. I mean, that, like, there's a lot of people that are still living that can tell that story. The
And
Bordens.
also, the thing about the Gucci family is that their entire empire hinged on publicity. So it's not like
Mm,
they were a quiet, removed family who had great influence.
Living their private lives. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They were absolutely. It's like they were like the Kardashians. I mean, they couldn't get enough publicity.
Well, did either one of you ever see the 1975 film The Legend of Lizzie Borden with Elizabeth Montgomery?
With Elizabeth,
But
that's I think that's the one that I remember. That's the one that sticks in my mind simply because it was Elizabeth Montgomery, and
well,
right, right.
Catherine, yeah, Catherine Hellman, Fritz Weaver. It had a good cast.
yeah.
But what came out of that, not only was there a lot of misinformation historically, but they portrayed the victims in an awful light, especially the
Hmm.
stepmother. It
Yeah.
was all fabricated, and people believed, what they saw on the screen as being the actual. It did a disservice to history, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And you know, uh, I just wondered.
But Shelley, that movie actually portrayed the storyline the best.
It's the
Even
best of
though,
everything I've ever
right.
seen. And we were really looking forward to Tom Hanks, who had a project with Playtone. He was going to do a mini series on the Borden case.
Mm,
I think it was a 3 or 4 part mini series. And then when
mm,
the Chloe Sevigny uh, film came out, the interest was kind of lost
yeah.
in duplicating. And I knew your father, RC, very well, and I've saved his correspondence over the years. And this
No.
is something he and I used to like to talk about too. When does it serve the storyline to add things that didn't really happen, like
Well, you know what,
gratuitous
what what
nudity?
what comes to my mind is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Killer.
Yeah,
Oh, we lost her. There she
She'll
I
goes.
be
knocked her
back.
right
She'll be
offline.
back.
Yeah.
She'll be back. Okay.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
Really? Abraham? I've never seen that. But
It,
it
it, it
just
was a
sounds
very
so.
big. It was a. No, it came out a couple, 3, 4 years ago. It's a big budget movie.
Really? I've
Yeah, and I
never heard
thought,
of
and
that.
I thought, I didn't realize Abraham Lincoln killed vampires. So
Me
I
neither.
guess I was historically uninformed.
Uh,
I thought
yeah,
everyone
but
knew he
the
was.
difference there, it
It's
never
it's such a
claimed.
distortion because I think everybody
Yeah.
knew that Abraham Lincoln hunted zombies, and
Oh,
this is
sure.
common
Yeah.
knowledge. So
Yeah. We learned that in
Rena,
fourth
you're saying
grade.
the book was great and the movie wasn't? Oh my God. You read the
No,
book.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Oh, it's
spoofs and
frozen
things
again.
like that are
Oh,
blatantly fiction, I can roll with that. But, when you pretend to present a historical event and go way off into fantasy land, that's where I kind of get annoyed. So
there we go.
I
So
wondered how you felt.
my big
Mm.
question to you guys, and this has come up time and time again with censorship, and I think Richard, you and I, went back and forth a little bit about it, and said that you told me that censorship isn't really as important right now as the political climate that we're in, and writing, and being around the cancel, like people canceling you out. Well, I forget what it's called.
Cancel culture.
The
Yeah.
cancel culture. So you as
Yeah.
writers, do you consciously think about that and hold back on a story that you may tell in fear that of what you might say? Like recently Dave Chappelle on one of his stand-up comedies on Netflix, he got torn apart for the whole transgender thing he had going on that stand-up comedy routine. Like, I mean, do you worry about that?
I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a novelist a little earlier today, and his public, yeah, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. There it is. I see it up on your comment thing. But his publishers asked him to remove a character that was a female prostitute, even though she was a wise and she was a person of depth and a person who, she was not in any way a kind of a stereotype. But they felt that it was going to be alienating to female readers. So what do you make of that? I think of like
Wow.
what was the film with Jane Fonda where she played the prostitute?
Clue,
Clute.
wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Clute.
Now a film like
I'm
that, I
sorry. I'm
guess.
still trying to get past Barbarella.
Well, I don't think you could make Clute today. I reminded him of a film that I saw recently. I've seen it before with Maria Bello called the Cooler,
Oh yeah,
and
oh yeah,
she plays a prostitute, and then
and William H Macy.
yeah, and then there was
Yeah.
Leaving Las Vegas,
Hmm.
Right. I've seen
where
that one.
she also played a prostitute. That they were very fascinating characters, and they had depth, and they had melancholia, and They were complex,
They were
and
multi-dimensional
they
characters.
were very multidimensional, and I don't think you could get away with it now. Although there are things on TV right now that have that, but people's sensitivity levels are acute.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Holly,
Yeah.
I love that movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought that was such a great movie. With Quentin Tarantino. Have you
Yeah,
guys seen that one?
yeah. Well, there's a lot of
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
upset
Oh yeah.
from Brandon Lee's family about that, about the way that fight played out.
Really?
Yeah,
What?
Hmm.
Yeah.
because it
How is
made
that
Bruce
accept?
Lee. Because it made Bruce Lee look like a bit of a poseur, and that he didn't really know what he was doing in a certain way, and that
Oh, come
Brad Pitt.
on. That's what I mean. It's just how far are we gonna go? Like,
Well,
cause I would,
it's not how far we're going to go. We're there.
yeah. I mean, I used to go to a movie just for entertainment value. I mean, like people would go and review the movie. I said, I don't want to hear it. I just want to go and enjoy it. And I did. And now it's like there's so much commentary. And I think social media has a lot to do with it too, right? Like, because people are always spouting off here in social media.
Yeah,
Well, social media, just the very nature of the algorithms, the most successful emotion that social media traffics in is anger.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, if you can do something to incite rage, then it's going to get a lot of clicks. It's going to be very successful.
Isn't that a
And
shame?
well, it comes at a cost.
Mm,
When you train basically an entire generation of humans that their whatever their rage du jour is, their rage of the moment, has emotional currency, but has actual currency. Then we create it's it becomes a very toxic environment very
yeah.
quickly.
Well, we were just talking today about having a feel good story. I mean, like coming up with a show, like, the good
Yeah, what was
thing.
it?
Yeah.
I was talking with my wife at dinner the other night, and I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody started a cable news network called Paza TV that was just basically uplifting stories every day, things that actually make you feel good. And then Kim, you said you actually tried.
We did
Did you
try it.
actually try doing that?
We
Yeah,
did. We tried, and it was called I think the good thing or something. But we couldn't find any
the good
positive
news.
stories. The good news. The good news.
you
Yeah,
couldn't
But
find any
we
material.
had trouble finding good
yeah,
material to put
Wow.
on it.
Oh,
Seriously though, I mean there's a problem
it's a,
there, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I think we've
yeah.
lost Richard. Well,
Well,
I,
I
I
we
have
got to
a
rename this show Lizzie Borden popping in and out or something. I don't
popping
know.
in and out. Well, I have a question for you. Yeah, when the Elizabeth Montgomery film was done in 75, the censors were busy on what they could show as far as the blood, guts, and gore. If either of you were writing a script about the Borden case, would you approach it as a horror genre or more of a psychological thriller?
well, Craig, go ahead.
Um, I would like to say
Yeah.
but it depends on what do you mean by horror. Horror, in a lot of ways, has become uh, cheapened,
Very
and
graphic, yes.
just like horror is like a bad theme park ride at best most of the time, or that's the way it's perceived. And I think horror well done is tremendously effective.
Yes.
Well,
Um,
Craig, you were telling me the other day that one of the reasons you stopped writing is because you lost interest in writing horror or something because of the reason you're saying, right?
hmm? Yeah, partially. I also, honestly, I part of me, I sort of started backing away from writing really gruesome material because I was spending too much of every day just basically fighting for my life with stage 4 metastatic cancer. And I didn't want to then turn around and throw myself into some gruesome fictional universe and churn through that. I just needed to kind of get away from it a little bit.
Hmm.
And then there's so little. On the one hand, we're I have to be very careful how I say this, because I think on the one hand we are kind of in a horror renaissance right now in terms of the number of writers who are participating in the genre, and also because of the growing diversity within the genre, which I think is a wonderful thing. I have to confess I haven't read most of them, and I tend to read writers that I already know, and am already fans of. I'm a huge fan of this guy's work over here. Um, and that's okay. I have my copy of Scars right here.
I love that.
And
Actually, I'm reading that now. I am reading that book right now as we speak. Yeah, it's really good.
so yeah, I there are the writers I know and love, and then there's just a whole ton of writers out there who I hear good things about, but I haven't gotten around to reading them yet. And so, bringing it back around to Lizzie Borden, I don't think you can really tell the tale of it without dealing with the essential heinousness of
Hmm.
what happened.
Yes.
Does that make it horror? Or does that make it a particularly gruesome psychological thriller? I don't think you can avoid that or shortchange it or try to kind of soften that without taking away from the essential gist of the story, the meat of the story.
Hmm.
So,
Good point there. Um, the psychology, though, of the killer, if you believe Lizzie was guilty, and I think you've lost me.
Oh wow! And I was just waiting for that question. She'll be in any.
There she goes.
One of the, I would call it a psychological thriller with a good helping of horrific scenes, was Dressed to Kill with Angie Dickinson. That's an older one. But,
there's
so
a
often.
movie that also couldn't get made nowadays.
No.
Ah,
Yeah,
Oh,
what's
You
yeah.
up with
know,
that? Why do you keep saying that? Is it because of the culture that we live in? Like you would get in trouble, or
We live,
the film the studios just wouldn't do it because they're afraid they're gonna get.
we live in a very censorious and to my taste, craven culture these days, where there are people whose stock in trade it is to go around castigating everyone for not towing the appropriate ideological line.
Mm,
And the arts suffer. I think the arts suffer greatly from that. It's
interesting.
hard to be creative when you're having to constantly second guess yourself,
are
and
Hmm.
you saying
especially
there's all?
if you don't have a thick enough skin, you don't feel like being attacked. It can cause you at the moment of creation to go, do I really want to go there? Is it really worth it? And then you get to the other hand that a lot of publishers, I think publishing more than Hollywood in a way, are not inclined to let you go there. They're going to make you make changes,
Hmm.
and it didn't used to be that way.
I wanted to add a couple things. I'm
Author
I'm the son of
used to have a lot more.
a mother who was a shrink and a father who wrote a lot of things that were very dark. Not everything. He moved into metaphysics, as Shelley knows, and one of the things that I remember him saying was he got into his, I guess, his mid 50s, maybe 60. He said he didn't want to do it anymore because he felt he was disseminating a negative energy, which I thought was very interesting for a guy who had really perfected the ability to create anxiety and fear.
So
That something had happened. It's
Richard,
a
let me
it's
just.
it reminds me of what Craig said, that that one can only withstand so much of this stuff, and it's not entertaining beyond a certain point. It simply becomes, if not a provocation, it becomes a kind of a enticement.
I wanted to just pause you there for a minute to let the viewers know who your father is, because some may not know who your father is. So maybe you can just give us a little line better than me of.
My father was Bob Dylan.
Okay,
I don't
okay,
think people
so
did it. Yeah,
so
That puts that
R.C.
puts the love
Matheson's
child rumor to rest. Yeah.
it
Hey,
does.
this is a
Craig is
scoop
right.
here.
My father was a very renowned writer of fantasy and dark fiction and some amount of horror, certainly, and then moved into metaphysics and things about life after death. Stephen King cites him as um, his most profound influence in his own work, and he was the first guy that brought horror, if you will, or a kind of a paranoid version of horror into suburbia when he
Yeah.
wrote I Am Legend, and even something like The
Yeah.
Shrinking Man, which didn't occur in
Yeah.
the bogs. There's a lot we could talk about with him, but he was, he's among the Mount Rushmore characters. He's up there.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for that.
And interestingly, there's a guy who really, it would be like Camus saying, I'm tired of upsetting people. He just got to the point where I think life had become genuinely difficult, genuinely traumatic. Everybody's life, and he didn't want to contribute to that. And I think I think also because his voice had become more prominent, he had a greater readership. He had more people that were listening to what he was doing and reading what he was doing, and so I think, had to become aware of what it was he was disseminating. And
You
so
know,
Yeah, it makes
for
me.
him, he didn't want to do it. No
It
more.
it, it kind of makes me wonder how he would navigate in today, how he would navigate. How do you think he would?
oh,
Well, he also wrote something like, I mean, he wrote Somewhere in Time, which
Yeah.
yes,
which is the polar opposite of what we're talking about. So
yes.
he would have found a way. I mean, he was, if nothing else, he was eclectic.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
certainly
okay.
was. Well, he once told
Nice,
me
nice,
that
Holly.
real horror, real terrifying, um, is something that happens in an ordinary setting to ordinary people. Something supernatural in a natural setting is true horror. And
I mean, that's magic realism. That's the whole South American school of that kind of fiction. And he understood that setting, and to take something mundane and find something within it that was really either perverse or unseen and terrifying. He called
terrifying
himself, by the way, he called himself a terror writer, not a horror writer. He either preferred being a
Interesting.
fantasy writer, and he didn't
fantasy.
like horror. He liked terror. So he was psychological, always in his work. And what
Mhm.
gave it resonance to this day is how psychological it was.
And he was very interested in the
Thank you,
Borden
David.
case. Yeah. We talked about, he came up with the thought of Lizzie being on the Titanic, coming back from a trip to England with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Bram Stoker, as a real fantasy thing, combining a lot of uh, interesting hobbies, of mine, and making a story out of that. Um, but we talked about the Borden case often and how we
You
would
lost him.
approach it.
You lost him, Shelley. Give him 1 minute to be back, and then tell him. One. There you go.
There he is.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
got to
I keep,
yeah.
rename this podcast.
Kimber, it keeps freezing. That's why I
Yes.
keep jumping off and jumping back
Well,
on.
it's
Yeah.
okay, Richard. I'm going to rename the podcast "Bobbing In and Out." I don't know. I have to find another name.
Frozen. How about
No, I've
Frozen?
got the name. Yeah.
Frozen, Frozen.
Now you see him. Now you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. But yeah, he was
So
very,
repeat,
very interested.
Shelley, what you
Yeah,
were
I was just
telling. Yeah.
he was very interested in the case. And when I first met your dad, it was at one of the Somewhere in Time weekends at the
Yeah.
Grand Hotel. I met your mother the same night, and
Mm.
Richard invited me to the cast party, and I got to meet the director. That was the highlight of my life, I can tell you. But all we talked about that night at the table was Janos Schwartz and a lot of the actors from Somewhere in Time was Lizzie Borden. And
Interesting.
how fascinating. And he really
Yeah.
had some
Yeah.
ideas about how he would write a script, for a film based
Hmm.
on that. I know he did play President Polk, I think, at one time. He's played
Garfield.
historical
Garfield.
characters.
President
Mhm.
Garfield.
Garfield, yeah. And of course, he was in Somewhere in Time as well, which has a huge following, as you know. I have a Facebook page for the Somewhere in Time film fans, and I often chat with your sister Allie,
Yeah.
about that. And your dad knew about it and enjoyed seeing what people had to say. He is immortal, your father, immortal
Yeah.
for many reasons, but most certainly, and he was very proud of Somewhere in Time and What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
They will go
Rightly
on
so. They were
forever.
beautiful
Yeah.
pieces. Oh my God. I love
And
those
what
stories.
message? And that's
Yeah.
when I think he went into his metaphysical phase and published his book, The Path. But I could sit here for hours and talk about your dad. But he'd had such an interest in the Borden case. We talked about our dream cast, and we both agreed Kathy Bates would have made a great Mrs. Borden. We were uncertain who we'd cast for Andrew Borden, and
Mm.
yeah, but yeah, I wish
Isn't
he
it a
had
small
done the
world though?
script.
Because when Shelley and I met, we never knew we had something in common. She knew your father, and I knew you.
Mm,
So like it
Well,
was
there you
just so
go.
weird, and we're like talking one day, and I'm like, really, you know Richard? Well, I knew Richard. You know,
And
it's
Kimbra, you and I and my father knew
yeah.
Craig. So Craig seems to be
Yeah,
the hub
Hmm.
here.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Small
I'm
world, right?
pulling the strings.
Craig seems to be the key, the master puppeteer here in some weird way.
It's so weird, like how everything kind of syncs up at some point in your life, like how you cross paths. I
Well,
just
your
find it
father did
fascinating.
say to me once, "Nothing is coincidence. We're
Hmm.
Yeah.
all we're meant to. Uh, these things sometimes are ordained. In other words, that we
Well, I
all
think what he also meant by that is that we all resonate. We have a frequency,
yes,
and
Hmm.
that frequency is both repellent and invitational to
yes,
those that have a sympathetic frequency. Craig
mhm,
and I used to be in a band together with another writer, Preston Sturgis's son, P.G. Sturgis,
Mm.
and it was a very clear measure of a frequency that people were giving off. And when you talk about chemistry that people have, it's a frequency that's it's compatible.
Yeah, it
It's
yeah,
was truly
sympathetic.
extraordinary. It was
Well, the
Yes.
extraordinary.
band itself was extraordinary because you have three like writers with, like Preston Sturges Jr. I mean, look at his dad. Oh my God,
It was the band with the biggest vocabulary
Yeah,
in rock and roll.
true.
Yeah.
No, I can see that, Richard. I really can. Yeah.
But I guess what I
oh,
mean is that fate, that we are the architects of our own fate to the degree that the frequencies that we give off are both invitational and repellent to those that have
Mm.
a
Yeah.
sympathetic or non-sympathetic frequency.
Yeah. And I just want to let the viewers know if they have any questions, please put them up. Put them up. We welcome all the questions you have. Um,
I
so,
have a question.
of course you do,
Yes.
Shelley.
Yeah, I always have
Smash cut.
questions.
Look at that. They know the name of the band. Okay. Very good.
Okay,
Very
Smash
good.
cut. Smash cut.
okay. Why do you think all these years, well over 100 years later, there's such a fascination with this murder that happened in 1892, and people can't seem to get enough of it? There have been many films and documentaries and uh, all types of, some better than others, like the Christina Ricci thing
Mm.
for what was it called,
Chronicles,
the
the Chronicles of
Chronicles.
Lizzie
Yeah,
Borden.
yeah. I mean, that was off the chart, but it was
Oh, it was
entertainment.
entertaining. You're right.
it was
It was
it was
really.
entertaining.
What
Yeah,
was
but
so funny about that one though, she was killing people every single day. It
there
wasn't
was
just like a
nobody
one
Yeah.
shot
left.
murder.
Yeah,
It was
yeah. The
like
whole city of Fall River, pretty much
was
got
murdered.
the axe on the first wave.
We're talking about the Christina Ricci Chronicles, the series that they
Chronicles.
had. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and why you think people are still into this crime?
I
Was
don't
it the
know. It's a
brutality?
very good question. I've wondered that about Jack the Ripper too, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
there have been countless hideous things that have occurred in history that far surpassed what Lizzie Borden did, far surpassed what Jack the Ripper did. But they become kind of singular and epic in their own way. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, you put a lot of thought into this.
No.
Well,
Well,
I
I
think
mean,
I
Kimber
think
Yeah.
wrote a whole book about
I
Kimber wrote a whole book about
I
it. I
think it
mean,
Yeah.
has
why
all
do
the
you
right
suppose it?
ingredients. I think it has
Yep.
essentially all the right ingredients for
okay.
something that can be lasting curiosity. Um, it's got the ingenue. It's got the young woman who then becomes involved in a particularly gruesome crime. Really, for any time, but certainly for that time, it was shockingly gruesome. Um, and there was never any real, really satisfying resolution to it. I mean, she
Right.
was
Okay.
acquitted, but if Lizzie didn't
Yeah.
do it, who did?
Right.
Okay.
And that question, to my knowledge, has never been answered.
No.
And so you have this overarching mystery that resounds to this day. But I think the essential building blocks of fascination are a young ingenue and a brutal, violent crime of a mysterious nature. And then
Interesting.
the whole who done it of did she or didn't she? And you take those things and swirl them together, and it's a recipe for success.
And you think because the crime scene is still there, and you can go to the house and all of that,
That helps.
then
That
That has a
that
helps.
lot to do with
helps
it.
people connect to the story.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I mean,
I think
people
the
can still
rhyme
go to
helps too. The
Whitechapel.
Lizzie
People can
Borden
still
took
go to
an axe.
Whitechapel and walk
You like that?
walk where Jack the Ripper walked.
I think the rhyme helps. I mean, how many other crimes can you think of that have their own rhyme?
Well, do you know how that rhyme
Yeah.
came?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know how that rhyme came about? I think the children made it up outside of Maplecroft, right? Shelley, is that right?
Well, they
You're the
would sing
historian.
it. Yeah, they would sing it. It was actually based on a English drinking song, I think, "Ta Ra Ra Boom Die."
Oh, right.
Um,
Tara boom the a
yeah,
right, right,
yeah,
right.
and so that's an. You're right. It's like a jingle when you
Yeah.
hear "chul," it tends to stay in your brain. So I think that I never thought about, but I think you're right that the jingle, the little poem, uh, probably it's like an earworm, you know.
Yeah,
I
publicity.
kind of feel this crime, though, people don't want it to be solved because, what would be
We'd be
left? I
out of
mean, you
business.
just, oh, yeah, it's solved now. Like, you won't, go to the house with this mystery to solve when you're there. Because every time I've been to the house, I always explored it and try to find some new. I mean, you did many experiments when you were there, like running down the
Yeah.
street, timing
Mhm.
it, how long would it take. People love to do that. They want to figure out something themselves. I'm
They want to
included in
solve
that.
it. Yeah, they
Solve the
want to solve
case.
it.
There is
Mhm.
in the I think it's the defense attorney Robinson in his law office. Isn't there some case files that still are legally unopened that people want to see that they're thinking it's a smoking gun? That
Well,
too.
yeah.
So that adds to the like the mystery of wanting it. But honestly, if it was solved, I mean, would it change things? I don't know. I'm still fascinated with the whole O.J. Simpson trial, because I believe he did it and he was acquitted. And I'll never forget, if the glove fits, you must acquit. You know, it's kind of
You
like,
know, it's also the weapon. I mean, they always say that, like in prison, the inmates that get the most respect are the ones that killed with knives, not with guns, because it's easy to kill with a gun.
Hmm.
So if you look at Jack the Ripper, if you look at OJ, if you look at Lizzie, they all did it. Well, she did it with an axe, but they didn't just take a gun and do it like that, which is, relatively speaking, easier. It was intimate, and because of the intimacy of it, it gives rise to more of the psychological exploration too.
Psychological, exactly.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you really have to be committed to
Hmm.
stab somebody to death.
Hmm.
I mean, it's almost never impersonal, except in Japan subways.
Richard.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Well, the crime. Okay, first, I was gonna say the crime, just like
There we
the
go.
sheer force. If you take a hatchet, now there's a difference between an axe and a hatchet. A hatchet is smaller. You can hand hold it, and it's for a woman to hold that, it's no problem. But the thing that struck me that was just so amazing, the first murder, whomever did it, used that hatchet 19 times to the head. 19 times, if you can imagine. Boom, boom, 19 times. Waited an hour, went back and killed the father with 11 hatchet hits to the head again. The thing I never understood was, if it's a crime of passion, and you have that fury and you're just mad and you're going out, how can you wait an hour and then gel that stuff up again to do it again?
Yeah.
Like, and they said, but it was kind of like proven in forensics that it was the same person that did both crimes,
Hmm.
just by the way they were done. So I mean, that always had bothered me. How could you just hold it in, turn it off, and turn it on again with
Well,
the
it's just so
fury?
visceral. It's so visceral. I mean, if you poison somebody, it's awful, but it's not visceral in the same way. To axe somebody to death, to stab somebody to death, to behead people. I mean, the things that are so shocking tend to be the crimes where people are in close, killing one another.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. And
Yeah.
also, do
domestic
you
violence.
think because it was like the Menendez brothers, because it was the parents, the mom and dad figure, um, at one time or another, we've probably all said, "Boy, I could just kill my parents." They ground you for the weekend, and here's somebody who actually might have done that.
I think the crimes that stand out the most historically are men killing women and women killing men.
Well,
Um, I don't think men killing men is all that unusual. I think
Hmm.
women killing women is more unusual, but the ones that are really incendiary on an emotional level are men killing women and women killing men.
Women killing men. Yes,
Women
yes.
killing men, particularly, because it goes right to the heart of the whole dynamic, doesn't it? It takes the power and it reverses it entirely.
Mhm.
She's not just mad at me, she stabbed me to death.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
by that extension, parents killing children or children killing parents.
Hmm.
Exactly. That's
You
right.
know, that's
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 right.
also a power differential, and it tends to be shocking. Either way it goes, if parents kill children, it's horrifying. If
Yeah,
children
when you
kill
read about
parents,
mothers killing their babies, driving them off of bridges, and they drown, or whatever the sort of atrocity of it is, Craig's right that it's that dynamic. It's a sacrosanct relationship between
mhm,
parent and child, right? And when
mhm.
it gets violated, I think it is even more shocking than the crime itself because the psychology of it is so inside out.
Yeah.
So I think over time though, like because in the 1800s, women, and I have a lot of women in my book, use poison to kill. Right? Just it was so quietly subtle because the forensic wasn't there really to prove that they use poison to kill. So they would get
Ah,
off.
poison is for sissies.
So, but the crimes.
You can be far, far away, right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
crimes have changed though, like from then until now because technology has changed. So it's a lot harder to kill somebody and get away with it than back then. They were just like Shelley in one of the last shows. We were talking women that killed 100 people and got away
Mhm.
with it.
Oh
Like
yes, Jane
who was
Jane Topin and
right?
Amy Archer Gilligan, the
Uh,
arsenic and old lace
these
gal.
women were
Yeah,
unbelievable,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
nobody proved that they ever did it. Like because it was you can't
Mm.
Yeah.
They
detect
got
it because there were
away.
no
They got away
Yeah.
with
forensics.
it. Yeah,
The forensics
and
are there were no forensics when Lizzie Borden. I mean, barely any.
No,
barely any. Yeah,
they didn't have
barely any.
fingerprinting back then even.
Well,
But
there you go.
so now the crimes, like are very different from back then. And I think if you want, it's a lot harder to kill somebody because there's always that thing in the back of your mind, am I going to get away with it? So,
Yeah. Am I gonna get a Lifetime movie out of it?
yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
Sure.
Who will
All
Uh,
play
right,
me
it's
in the
worth it.
Lifetime movie? Yeah.
It's worth it.
they got to get busy on a script, guys, right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Right away. Here's
Yeah.
one for you. I'd love your take on this. I get a lot of mail. We've lost Richard here. Um,
All right. Well, hold off until so he can.
he'll pop back in. There
Dun, dun,
you are.
dun. There he is.
Yeah. I get a lot of mail via the website, Lizzie media, social media. There are Lizzie fans and champions who get really upset with me, or anybody who has negative things to say about Lizzie Borden. Oh, whose dog? It's like, what do they call that syndrome when someone in jail, gets visitors and they fall in love with the prisoner
Yeah.
situation, and they get very hostile if I criticize Lizzie in any way.
Well, it's
I
like the
don't.
It's like the Stockholm syndrome. You
That's
start you
yeah.
start to you start to relate to your captor,
Yeah, I find
and
that
so
infuriating.
they're captive to the myth, and so they're sort of
I mean,
they've
even though it's been so many, what, 120 some years ago, it's like, what does that say about us? It's kind of scary when this happens. Like, they're not living on planet Earth. It's sort of what's going through the mind. I don't know what it means, but Stockholm syndrome is
well,
a good
then
way to put it.
we all have a dark side, and so you pick the figure who represents it in a way you can live with, I guess.
Yeah,
Who's your Mister or Mrs. Hyde?
yeah. Well, when you
So
do your script, we need to have that element in there too. With the champions.
I would
There
Well,
are
actually,
many.
I would like to turn the table on the two of you. That you two have studied Lizzie Borden and the whole crime at some great depth. If you could, just off the top of your head, what do you think has been missed that would make
mhm.
for a great new telling of the story as a film? What's the
Well,
most salient
yeah,
aspect
I know Shelley's
that
going to answer this
has
first.
yeah. I've
that
had
has
30
not been
years to think
covered?
about it. I've had 30 years to think about this, Craig. Mm. The influence, the influence. I'll give you the short answer of her older sister Emma on Lizzie's real mother's deathbed. Uh, Lizzie's mother's died when she was about 3, but her elder sister Emma was 9 years older. So you have someone now almost a teenager. Uh, and Lizzie's real mother, not the one that was killed, not the stepmother, but her biological mother, told the older sister, I want you to always take care of Lizzie. Promise me. You'll always look after her. Now, Emma was outraged when her father remarried to Abby Borden, who will become our victim. And I wish a script would be written that goes back. The film would open at the deathbed of Lizzie's mother, saying that to her oldest daughter. And then you would see the influence that Emma had. No child of three, of course, she was 5 when her father married Abby, but no child is, little child hates somebody just off the bat. It's conditioning by her older sister over time. And then they became a unit, and it was them against Abby. It was the us and them sort of thing. I would like a script that gives the backstory on where did all this happen.
Yeah,
That's
and
if
you
you
can,
think, yeah,
and Shelley, you can bookmark that in because at the end, near the end of Emma's life, she said that she had always protected Lizzie
yes.
no matter what. So I think she knew what Lizzie had done for sure.
That's if you buy Lizzie as guilty,
Yeah, why do?
and not everybody does. I
Well, do you think
happen to
Emma
believe.
encouraged? Do you think Emma encouraged her?
Boy, it's hard. Emma is such a dark horse, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't know a lot about her. But I have a sister a great deal younger than myself, and I know the influence I had. And it was a step parent situation. It was identical, actually. And I can see the elder sister was more like the mother figure. Emma was more of a mother figure to Lizzie growing up. And Emma even admitted that between the two of them, she disliked the new wife more. But she was 12. She remembered her mother in great detail, her real mother. And I think when I get excited about the psychological stuff more than the actual chop chop blood
Yeah,
and guts kind of thing,
yeah, and Lizzie's biological mother, Sarah, had a lot of influence with women who were involved with the women's suffrage movement too.
Yes.
With yeah, so I mean that in itself just speaks volumes to me as to where these women's minds were as far as women's rights, and I included a lot of that in my book
Yeah,
because
yeah, that's a good take.
yeah,
And also, Craig,
I mean we're
another
talking about
thing
President Roosevelt.
Another
Yeah.
thing I want to see when you guys do the dream script for us
Rena.
is, but I know you're going to do it. I know I've got a few notes from your dad, RC,
Hold on,
about,
Shelly. Shelly, wait a minute. Hold on. I think I have about $200. Will that cover it?
yeah, we need to sell some more tchotchkes in the Lizzie shop, I think. But I'd like,
That'll take a lot of
I'd like
hatchets.
to have that, some stuff that doesn't get explored enough is to set it in the culture of the time. I've always said you can't get your brain up. We've
So while we're waiting this, we're going to bring our tea expert on, Rena, and she's going to mix
Yeah.
us. We're going to bring Rena on. Hold that thought, Shelly, to mix
Okay,
us
I've
a
got
little
it.
brew of tea because we do this every podcast. We have
I'm ready.
we brew a little tea.
Oh,
So she's going to
okay.
have a tea tonight. Then we'll get back to this conversation.
Okay.
Hey, Rena, how you doing?
Hi,
Hey,
everyone. Can you hear me?
yeah, we can. You have a
Yeah,
lag, but we
we
can hear
can
Yeah.
hear
you.
you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, it's something. It's
Oh, you're
better
good. You're
than you
good.
guys
Yeah.
kick out, come back in. This has been a great show, by the way. I've been really enjoying listening to it. But do you want me to
Oh, thanks.
start with tonight's beverage?
Yes, we would like a beverage, please.
All right. Well, usually I do something thematic, but I couldn't think of anything that would really work with two great horror writers and screenplays. So I just went with something holiday instead. So tonight I am making a peppermint mocha in the style of Starbucks peppermint mocha, but made with tea and matcha, low calorie, low sugar, and absolutely delicious. So this tea uses a holiday specialty called Holiday Macchiato Puer, which is a highly caffeinated strong tea. This is a very highly caffeinated beverage. And I'm going to use uh, sweet candy cane matcha, though I'm going to use an old pack that I have, so it has a different packaging, and sweet chocolate matcha, which is your favorite, Kim.
Yes, it
And
is. That is my
I'm
love chocolate
yep.
matcha.
And some milk, and that's it. So first, I'm going to take my two matchas, and I'm going to take one serving of matcha from each, which is half a teaspoon, and I'm going to add it to the bottom of my mug. And have either of you ever tried matcha before?
Never.
Yeah.
No.
Cracker. Oh,
Yeah,
Shelley,
I
you
have.
haven't even tried it.
I
Well,
haven't tried it.
it is green tea. It is
It's green
actually
tea.
the
Yeah.
ground up
Yeah.
green tea. So it does not dissolve. It needs to be mixed really thoroughly. So I whisk it with either a milk frother or just a matcha whisk. So I'm taking a half teaspoon of the chocolate matcha as well, putting it in the bottom. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of my boiled water. This matcha can use either hot or cold water. And I'm going to use, let me show you now, this matcha whisk that Kim and I were
Yes.
talking about earlier, which is, it's sort of a stationary whisk, so you can mix things up without having it move around. So I'm just going to add like a quarter cup of water and just matcha whisk it up. Sorry if my screen's shaking, it's because it's on my same table. And then that's all it needs. I'm going to add 1 cup of tea scoop of holiday macchiato tea, which is a really great blend that was created specifically for the holidays. So it's only available through the end of December, but I'm a little obsessed with it. And you could take a look. This is all loose leaf tea, and I'm putting it in my universal infuser, just a nice, easy infuser cup, and adding my hot water. I'm filling it up about 3/4 of the way with hot water because you're going to use milk for the rest. So we're going to let that brew for the amount of time, which it says 2 to 3 minutes. I put this in a little cute, you can't see it. There you go. Cute tea tin. But there are the bag itself has all the directions on the back. Again, I'm finding the camera's hard. So we're going to let that go for about 2 minutes. And while we're letting that go, we're going to froth up our milk for it. You could just do it what I normally do, which is just pour milk right into the tea. But it's fun to froth it up and give it a little extra energy. So a little milk.
The last drink we had, it was on one episode. We had our friends name it, and they named it Down the Hatchet.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Down the hatchet.
That's great.
That's a good one.
Down the hatchet was definitely my favorite creation.
Down the hatchet.
I think that one had alcohol in it too, right?
It did. It was basically
It
a
should.
strawberry gin and tonic.
Right.
So this this milk frother, you just kind of pump the handle and it froths up your milk. And since we still have time, I'm going to make a second cup of tea with another sort of holiday tea. This is a rooibos tea, which is naturally caffeine free. Shelley, have you tried rooibos? I'm sure you
I
have.
have indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It comes from South Africa, but this one is maple cinnamon waffles. And I meant to make it earlier today for me, and I didn't, so I decided to make it for myself now while we wait. And the maple cinnamon waffles, I'm going to use a steeping sack. So people are scared of loose leaf tea, but really all it is it's one extra step. Instead of having the tea already in the tea bag, you just add the tea to the tea bag. So I'm going to add my rooibos tea to my tea bag, add it to my cup, pour some water in.
By the way, I was with
Rena
Rena all day today. We were at the artist market. We were drinking tea, so I'm still all kind of hopped up.
Still jacked
It
up.
was great. Well, that's why I'm making a second cup of tea, because I'm going to give my husband Jack the peppermint mocha, which is highly caffeinated because it's about 70 milligrams of caffeine from the tea and then another 60 to 70 milligrams of caffeine from the matcha.
Oh wow.
which
Yeah.
compares to the fact that it's originally an espresso drink.
Oh
Yeah,
dang.
so you could compare the Starbucks to the Sipology. So you could see, well, mine's a little more than 75 calories
Oh.
because I use whole milk. But
Yeah.
aside from that, what a what a difference it is, and it's easy
Wow,
to
that
do
is
from
different.
home.
Yeah.
So time to add my frothed milk, and it's a little bit green because it does have matcha in it. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, that
There it
looks
is.
great though.
Wow.
Looks good.
And it is an absolutely amazing peppermint mocha, mm, made with just tea and matcha. So
Great.
a little bit better for you, definitely better for you calorically and also with sugar. So this is my nice little
Okay.
holiday treat, very pepperminty. And then my other
Beautiful.
holiday treat, this really does taste like waffles and for some reason pecans, even though there are no pecans. When I smell it, that's what I think of, pecans. So,
Wow.
or like candied pecans. And so our lovely tea
Liquid
for
waffles.
liquid, yes,
I've been
liquid
looking
waffles,
my whole
Liquid
maple
life for
cinnamon.
waffles.
liquid waffles. This is great.
Well, and these liquid waffles are 5 calories to have a cup.
Oh
There's
man, wow.
no sugar in it, and you don't need sugar. You don't need to add anything to it. No sugar, 5 calories, and it's just a rooibos
Wow.
tea made with apple pieces. It does have maple sugar, but it's not even 1 gram's worth, which is why it's not included in the nutrition facts. Fenugreek, safflower, natural flavors, and that's it.
Sounds great.
So
Fabulous.
those are our teas for tonight, and they're only
Yay.
available through December 31st through Sipology. So make sure you visit Rena's Tea House and
Yeah.
check
And it's
it
on
out.
my site too. Her Sipology it's an amazing company. They're based out of Canada, but they make an amazing all natural product. So they're really good. So
Thank
Rena,
you,
I will
Rena.
see you next Sunday, and thanks for
Yeah,
coming
I'll
on.
see you next Sunday, and
Okay.
I'm gonna enjoy listening to the rest of this show because it's
Thank you.
fascinating. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you,
Great,
Rena.
great. All right.
Thanks.
you,
See you
Rena.
Have a
Nice to
good
meet
night.
you. Bye bye. Yeah,
Thanks,
you too.
Rena.
Bye.
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 Oh, I could use some
I
tea
love
right
Rena.
about
She's
now.
great. She's an actress too. She's a phenomenal
okay.
actress. They do Shakespearean theater in Staten Island, and it never ceases to amaze. I went to see Hamlet. Let me tell you, you got to have some ass power to see Hamlet, because it's over 3 hours that play. I mean, it's like you
Yeah.
sit, but it was really
She
really
should give them.
soothing.
She should give them the tea first, so they can get through it like in
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Exactly. And doesn't she
Speed
also
Shakespeare,
sing?
right? Speed
Yeah,
Shakespeare.
Yeah. Speed Shakespeare. There you go. Yeah.
there's a whole new field
To be
ahead.
or
Whole
not to
new
be, that is the
concept.
question. Where
Yeah.
Doesn't she
anyway,
also have a band, Kimbra?
yes, she does. It's called the
The,
Flesh Junkies.
the Flesh
And
Oh, nice.
Junkies.
yes, and
Okay.
they are a cabaret zombie type band. They recently played at the St. George Theater. They had over 500 people in the audience to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They
Oh
did the
wow.
songs from that, but they're really an amazing band. I love them. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she does a lot,
Cool.
and she's a school
Well,
teacher.
on top of
So
that, yeah,
yeah,
it's an interesting life. Well, you know, there's I guess it's called metal. I'm a little out of it at my age, but it's actually called Lizzie Borden, and
oh, the metal band, I think.
it's a
Yeah,
metal band called
yeah,
Lizzie Borden. And there's been a rock musical currently.
yeah.
Um, they're touring now, Lizzie Borden, and you know it's not anything that I listen to regularly, but I have to keep up with what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean they've chosen that name. I don't know what Lizzie Borden would have thought of all of this. Uh, she wanted to pretty much. I don't think she'd have been amused. I know she wanted it all to go away, and her life at Maplecroft, which is for sale, by the way. In case you're looking for something new to get into, maybe we could have a bed and breakfast there, and you could do all your screenwriting up in the turret room. What do you
There
Boy,
you
think?
go.
Shelley's really pushing it.
I think
Yeah.
maybe somebody told me that the band Molly Hatchet
Uh,
had been inspired. by
Oh,
by
Lizzie
Lizzie's
Borden.
story.
I have no
Yeah.
idea. That's we'll have
Okay, now
to
I'm
we'll have
gone.
to
That would
check
make
that one out.
sense in a way.
Stands to reason. Yeah, more.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Could be.
Kenny, one of Kenny's favorite bands is baby. Is it Baby Metal?
Baby,
Yeah, Baby
Yeah.
Metal. They were all
what
girl
is
group out of
that?
Japan.
Baby
Okay.
metal.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
while you were gone, RC, we were talking about Lizzie's home in Fall River. Maplecroft
Hmm.
is for sale. And,
Hmm.
well, we talking about maybe we should open a B&B there. What do you think? It's
Well,
quiet. It's good for writing.
It's a mill
Uh,
too, isn't
yeah,
it? Or isn't
mhm.
it $1 million? How much is it?
a
Oh,
million
no,
dollars.
no. I think you're about 600,000, I think, in that neighborhood. Oh, and
Oh,
it
I
comes
thought.
with the furnishing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. We're hoping someone, will open it as a B&B. And
Shelly
it's
and
a
I
great
both
place.
been there, so like I did a run. It was one day run. Poor Kenny. I felt so bad because I got him up at like 5 in the morning. I said we're going to Maplecroft, and it's a 5 hour drive from where I'm at. So we drove 5 hours to Fall River, took the 2 hour tour, hung out, and then drove 5 hours back in one day because it was COVID and we weren't going to stay anywhere. So that was a long day, but it was well worth it. The house is really interesting. The most interesting thing about the house though is the garage.
Hmm.
Because imagine this in 1892, I think in the early 1900s is when she got a car, right, Shelley? In 19
Yeah, yeah. She was
oh,
one of the first in the city to own.
a
Um,
car.
yeah,
So the
like a Model
garage
T.
was heated, and then you drive your car in, and there's this little metal spinning thing. So you
Like a
drive the
microwave.
yeah, you drive the car up on this metal thing, and it actually spins. So you don't even have to back in or back out. It turns the whole car on a wheel, kind of thing. And then she had her own gas tank in the garage, and there was this part that was like a hole that was dug out. I think they did oil changes and everything in there, right, Shelley?
Yeah, she had her own
Yeah,
gas
I
tank
mean,
and
talk
everything.
about
Yeah.
having money back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
It's unheard of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now there's another whole film for you guys to write. Lizzie after the trial,
Like,
Our Lady of Maplecroft.
Yeah.
What's the real deal? What went on behind,
Well,
the walls?
what did become of her life after?
wow.
Did she what did happen to her life
Wow.
after the
Yeah,
whole
she
thing
She
blew
bought
was
a
over?
beautiful
ostracized.
home. Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
She bought a
how
beautiful
long
home.
did she live, and did she marry? Did she have children? What
No,
was her
no,
life?
No,
and no.
no. She and her sister
I mean,
bought a
what guy would
beautiful
marry
home.
her? I'd be like, oh
Thank
my.
you. Really?
Maybe we could just
Yeah.
like date.
I don't think you'd want to. She wouldn't do well on eHarmony or Tinder or whatever it is. But
Yeah,
neither one of them ever married. And
yeah. You don't want to break up with her.
the good
As
thing is,
David Wolf said, she did live it up though. She had the life. And it's so funny because she did have parties and entertain. Amazingly enough, she was really into the arts. She loved theater. She went to Washington D.C. a lot to go down there to see theater and shop, sort of away from Fall River, because they ostracized her terribly. I mean, I think she was really super lonely, even though she went through all these things and had the finer things in life. Am I wrong, Shelley?
well, she wasn't the recluse that many people, claimed she was. She traveled quite a
A lot,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, and she took up causes. Animal welfare was one of her big causes, and she had her own circle of friends, very good friends that she remembered in her
Friends in high
will,
places, though, too.
and friends in high places
Yes.
too. Uh, but she was sort of a social pariah in the city of Fall River, and
But
she
were
was
there
actually
any other scandals of any kind?
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. There
Oh,
was
were
a
there?
big one,
Mm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and it was sort of quietly settled behind closed doors. But apparently, there was, well, the story was Lizzie was a kleptomaniac, but we've only seen one documented instance of some porcelain wall plaques being taken
Hold that
and
thought. Hold that
they
thought.
they traced it. Oh,
So Richard can hear the whole story.
oh yeah, it's a good one. The newspapers made a lot out of it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, some porcelain wall plaques were taken and given as a gift to one of Lizzie's family members. And now, can you still hear me? No,
Yeah,
now
I
I've
can
dropped.
hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically,
Yeah.
they prove that. Uh,
Oh, here
well,
we
go
are.
ahead.
Oh, you know, it seems like I drop out right after you drop out.
This is
Something
like
must
tea
be
and murder
connected.
whack-a-mole.
There you
But you
go.
know what's
So,
weird?
Popping up.
But you know what's
It's
so
it's
weird?
like Hollywood Squares.
Craig and I aren't dropping out. It's only you two. That's
so
what's
okay.
weird.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah.
Yeah,
strange, Shelley.
there
Very,
must
Yeah.
be. It's a ghost in the machine, I'm sure.
very strange things are
Yeah,
going on here, Shelley.
they're
So anyway,
getting back
Lizzie
to the.
got caught shoplifting, and they traced it back to her. So they said it was her stealing those items, right?
Yeah, that it was the newspapers made a big deal of it. The headline was "Lizzie strikes again," and a lot of this. The story went that the store would drop charges if she signed a confession.
Yeah.
Of course, she couldn't be retried, a double jeopardy there for the same crime. But it was all settled
The
out of
bigger
court.
one of the
They
other
would drop the shoplifting charges if she admitted that she committed
If she
murder.
had, yes, they would
Oh,
drop
that
the
is a good
charges.
one. There you go. Yeah. Okay.
That was
Yeah.
Tilden and
Sure.
Thurber Jewelry Store. Tilden and Thurber Jewelry Store in Providence is where that story
I
is.
mean, but
Uh,
were all the scandals to do with theft
No, no,
and
no.
uh,
The big scandal. You're missing the big scandal, which was they claimed that she was having an affair with one of a famous actress, Nance O'Neill, whom
oh,
Nance
okay.
would visit,
Yeah,
Lizzie
yeah,
at
yeah.
Maplecroft, and they would have these elaborate parties. And in fact, Lizzie bailed Nance out of she paid to get her out of trouble because for some court cases that she owed a lot of money to the creditors. So Lizzie paid those bills. So they're thinking that maybe there was a lot more going on than meets the eye, but that was never proven either, right?
Well,
well,
it's either sex or money. That's
Right.
what people are interested
well,
in.
was Lizzie ever involved in a romance with a man?
Yes, probably, maybe. Well,
Well,
there
Ooh.
you
was a
don't
rumor
know.
of the one guy, right?
Well, there was a rumor about David Anthony. That
Yeah.
was completely false. There was nothing to that one.
But wasn't there someone at Maplecroft too?
Oh, you
Another.
mean her carriage driver, Joseph Tetro, was her
Yeah.
carriage
Yeah.
driver. He was just kind of
Because she
saucy with
bought
all
him
the women.
gifts.
So she
Emma
could have been
fired him.
she might have been a lesbian.
Well, that's a
Possible.
theory.
Yeah,
That's a theory
yeah,
that
yeah.
some people think.
Well,
My
I mean
my
that wouldn't have gone over so well in the 1800s.
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
And
Boston.
but my true theory about Lizzie is that she was really super smart. Super smart because she had a library by today's standards. I think it was worth $1,200, but if you look at the cost of living back then, a book might have been like 5 cents. So it was this elaborate. She read all the time, and
But
and
it was
also
novels. A lot of novels. It was
yeah,
fiction.
she was into the arts, and she was very she was for women's rights because she belonged to all these clubs like that had to do with the women's suffrage movements of women's rights. So I think she knew exactly what she was doing. I think she never got married because back then, if you married a man, he owned all your property.
Is
So
it
Although
is it inconceivable she had a relationship with her sister?
oh, I never thought of that, right?
not
That's a new one.
inconceivable. Yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
Hey, don't
Leave it to
tell
you. Nobody's
anybody.
ever thought took that
Well,
angle.
I mean that would make you want to kill your parents. That would make you
This
want
is
to
a
kill your
whole new
parents.
movie. Hey, this is a whole
Well,
new
I
movie you
mean,
come
I
up
mean,
with.
there would be that would be a major secret. It would be something to protect, and it would be something to act out about.
Yeah.
By which I mean
Ah,
take an axe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It does
Oh,
happen.
that
Well,
Emma.
well, Emma did leave Lizzie when they were living
Yeah.
at Maplecroft. The sisters moved in that house together. But what happened? I think after about 5 years, Emma said something like
1905. 1905.
19. Oh, so it was way more than five. But Emma said she didn't like the happenings that were going on in the house, had to leave. And we never knew what that was. It could have been
Well, it could have been if they'd had a relationship, she could have been jealous.
I love this. We need to work on this one.
Jesus.
This one's got legs, I
If
think.
you listen,
Yeah.
if you need a lesbian twist on a story, anything, just give me a call.
Gotcha. Making note right now.
Well, you know, it's really weird too. When I went to visit the house, Shelley's been in it many times. Me, I visited it once. But what I got out of it was, if you look at Lizzie's bedrooms, oh, both of them at the same time. Look at that. Wait, I see you guys, you both went out at the same time.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
something going. You guys both went out at the same time now. There's
Yeah,
something
I didn't
going
hear
on
what
there.
you were saying. You said you both went to the house and
Well, I went. Shelley's visited the house many times because she lives closer to Fall River. But when I visited the house, Lizzie was really truly in charge of that house because she had beautiful big bedrooms, beautiful bedrooms. She actually built onto the house her summer bedroom in the back, which was, and it's in an awkward way. You have to like go down the back staircase, but then step up into another step into the back bedroom. It's like a very secluded, you wouldn't know it was there unless you look for it. Let's put it that way. And then Emma had one little bedroom, just one little bedroom. And it almost seemed the same as her bedroom
On Second Street, yes.
the Borden, where the murders took place.
Right.
So I always thought that Lizzie was in charge. What she said went. Poor Emma just sort of was a second thought in that house. I don't think, almost prudish maybe, like a prudish religious type woman, more so than Lizzie was very outgoing and really, like two totally separate personalities, I would think, right?
Well, yeah, they did. And it was inevitable that they were going to split. And there's a great story right there that doesn't ever get really addressed or developed is why did her sister, they moved into Maplecroft in 1893, that autumn. First thing Lizzie does is go to the World's Fair in Chicago, the Columbian Exposition it was. And so 1893 to 1905, they're living together. And then they part company, and word is they never saw each other again. So it had to be something big. Emma consulted her minister, Reverend Buck,
Yeah.
about what should she do. So I can't take the goings on in the house. There's liquor, there's theater people, which was appalling, to Emma. They were not people you would bring into your home.
Well, back
And
then they just weren't, yeah.
that's the other thing we were talking about when we dropped out. All of the films and things that I see, they don't encompass the period in which the action occurred. They don't have the Victorian spin, that's left out. And so people are saying, that couldn't happen. You have to approach the crime with a Victorian mindset. What were the expectations of women at that time? To make this all make sense. But yeah, I wish that would be developed. This whole thing with why did Emma leave? What compelled her? Did she think Lizzie was guilty? I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, women really talk differently to each other too. I mean, when they wrote letters to each other, they were friendship letters, but they almost sounded like love letters, like the language that people
it could have
spoke.
it could have been a shattered romance.
there you go. There
Well,
you
it
have
could have
it.
been. It could have. It's not crazy. I mean, there's no way we'd ever be able to verify it
To prove it, yeah.
we were Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
He would say, "Well, yeah."
He was there. Yeah, well, it's
But
the same.
it
Thing.
follows all the earmarks of a broken romance, actually.
Yeah, Shelley did. And here's another thing that we had. It was so funny because Shelley and I, we sort of run these circles, right, and not knowing. So I've been to the Borden house many times, and one time Kenny and I went up and we stayed in Lizzie Borden's room, right? So I'm going through all her stuff, I'm looking in boxes, anything I could find. And on the dresser, I opened this little box and there was a Valentine's Day card. And it was written like, it was written, "Dear Lizzie, I admire you from afar." And it was a secret admirer. It was never signed. And I'm like, to Kenny, I'm like, oh my God, Lizzie had a secret admirer. I was like into this. Shelly, like just a few months ago, we were talking about, she goes, that was me. I used to send cards to the Lizzie Borden house all the time. And she put it in there. And I'm like, wow, that's just so, I don't know. It was funny because I
What
thought
became after they broke up? Did Emma marry?
No,
neither of the
no,
women did.
Did Emma get romantically involved with a man?
no.
No.
Well, then there you have it. Come on, guys.
What?
End
What?
of
What are you
story.
saying?
End of story.
I'm
We don't
saying
need to
that
do another
I'm not
podcast.
saying
It's
it.
been solved.
I'm wildly speculating, just looking at and you're right. You have to look at the Victorian
Yeah.
psychology of the time, right, as well.
Yeah.
But you look at the Menendez brothers. Their connection. I'm not saying that they had a romance, but their connection was more than just two brothers.
Yeah.
There was something that was far deeper. There, it was woven in a much more sort of complex way. And so, if you
Well,
just
on
follow the logic of it, whoops, I think
well,
we lost.
also too, I don't know, just certain areas of the United States this happens. It's not everywhere, but just certain areas it happens. But I'm holding this thought. So
Well, there we go.
I
So
might add to that,
two
Richard,
sisters in love with each other,
that
and they break up. Neither one of them ends up with a man.
Mhm.
There's potential for all kinds of uh,
so I want to add though
emotion.
that women in general back then that are very rich women. Lizzie had some distant cousins that she went on a tour to Europe with for 3 months, I think it was, and they toured all over.
Yes.
Yeah, and they toured all over Europe. They came back, and that's a long trip back then. You're taking a ship, takes a long time, but the conversations, even her rich cousins never married, and it was the fact that it was a patriarchal society and women didn't want men to possess anything that they had earned themselves or had inheritance. If you get an inheritance, the husband automatically gets that. It doesn't matter if
So
it's
you're talking about
yours.
rich women. Rich
Mhm.
women had that
Well, rich
attitude.
women and any woman actually, but these women talk amongst themselves. So you have to believe the reason maybe the Borden sisters did not marry, that may have been one of the big reasons, because they stood to inherit millions of dollars. Her father was one of the richest men in Fall River. By any standards, he was worth millions of dollars. So they weren't going
Well,
to give that
that's
up.
in today's money. In
Right,
today's
in
money,
today's
yeah.
money. But they weren't going to give any of that up. I mean, he owned property. So, I mean,
But Lizzie was never interested, like all the girlfriends, in finding a man, because that was the reason for. That's the Victorian thing. I wish more of that was included. These girls were always man hunting from the time they put their hair up, their back hair up. Lizzie, according to people who knew her, said she was never interested in boys like all of her girlfriends were. And there
there he
was,
goes again.
yeah, there you
Richard's like,
go.
sister.
And
Well,
you
yeah, I
know
mean,
what?
women at that time had no social status if they were not
Right,
married.
right.
Exactly, exactly. And this is what I like to have explored more. There was a minister, Reverend Peace, I think his name was, who wrote to Lizzie in jail. And he was
Oh, yeah.
interested, yeah, he was more interested in her money, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah.
But, she had her lawyer write him a, drop dead kind of letter. She was not interested in this guy at all. And the one chauffeur that we talked about earlier, Emma fired him. He didn't like the way uh, Joseph Tetro was kind of fresh with Lizzie. He was kind of a more ladies' man. I think he was good looking, and so Emma got rid of him. So there's more for your script, RC. You could put that in there
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Have you
it's
ever,
all it's
to
all
to to
connecting.
to your knowledge, have there been many psychics that have been to that house and done readings?
Oh,
Zillions,
yeah.
zillions.
Zillions of
I've
them, right?
And
probably been
paranormal
to
investigators too. Yes.
And
I've
what
been to
kind of? I
more
mean, is it
seances.
all? Is it just a zillion different interpretations?
Yeah, it's a zillion
Yeah,
different yeah. Yeah.
hmm yeah.
We
We've had a lot
recently
of seances there too,
yeah.
Mm,
and
mm,
also Maplecroft. The paranormal trend right now has blown up in both of those houses. The
mm,
house, the murder house, and then where she lived out her life. She
yeah.
lived until 1927.
Mm,
So she was born in 1860. She was about a month short. She died on June 1st, 1927, a month
Yeah.
short of her, what is it,
Well,
67th birthday.
yeah, the paranormal
Any
groups
any
though, what
any
you can say
blood sacrifices amongst those seances? I mean, I think that would
Uh,
really help to get the juices flowing. It's like something needs to be sacrificed.
I guess so. Yeah,
well,
I wasn't privy to those.
I have issues with a lot of the paranormal groups. I mean, we had Ken DaCosta on our show last month or 2 months ago, and I really respect him because he will he looks at it from a scientific point of view with evidence backing up whatever they find, and he has said that a lot of it's just bullcrap, for television, to make money. A lot of the people that investigate, that's all they're about. Oh, let's turn the lights out and make it scary. And but he, you know, I trust his point of view, and but a lot of the people groups that have visited the house are just so full of crap. I mean, do you agree, Shelley? I mean, it's just way out there, way out there. They had a
I've
séance
seen two or
recently at the
three,
house
yeah, that were the
that the
real
guy
deal.
was just
Yeah.
like possessed. Whoa, I'm
Yeah.
possessed by whatever. And I asked Ken, and he said that's rare. It's really rare for someone to get possessed. In like just sit down and like a few minutes later you're possessed. So a lot of it is just not really believable.
Well, I would think Lizzie Borden and the Lizzie Borden house would be ripe for charlatans of all flavors. I mean, it's just
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
the other thing too, if you're Lizzie Borden, why in the hell would you want to stay there? You
She
know,
didn't want to be there alive. I'm
right,
sure
right,
as hell wouldn't want to be there in the afterlife. you know.
right, right. So,
So I wanted to ask the two of you. I'm sort of taking my lead from a question Craig asked earlier, which is what is it about this that is so fascinating to the two of you?
well, mine definitely
Oh.
is the time period, the women's suffrage movement, and her, and if she did the crime, why she did it, and I truly believe it's because she wanted the money. Bottom line, she
so you
wanted the
think
money.
she did do it.
Oh, I absolutely think she did it, and Shelley does too. The thing is,
Mhm.
the crime is so obscure because of how quickly the police showed up after the second murder, the time period, the hour between the murders. Like, why would an outsider come in the house and kill a person and wait an hour in the house and then kill a father whom wasn't even expected home?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
wasn't even expected
Mm,
home.
I think the stepmother was the intended victim,
Right, right,
and
exactly.
Andrew Borden was collateral damage because he
Right.
walked in
Mm-hmm.
and he would have known. He knew the animosity between Lizzie, and his second
Exactly.
wife,
Yeah.
and he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Kind of like, yeah, once again, the Simpson case that the guy that was bringing Nicole's sunglasses back, and he got
Yeah.
killed because he saw
Ron, his name
Ron,
Jesus.
is Ron. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ron.
Ron
Right.
Goldman. Yeah,
Right.
I
But
think
the
I think
thing,
collateral damage.
but the thing is, there's still questions with the murder weapon. They still don't know if it's the correct one that they have at the Fall River Historical Society, which is the hatchet head. And there's so many theories because it wasn't a cut and dry case. It was a really difficult case because it had so many different angles. And but they did rule out a lot of people because of where they were. They couldn't have possibly done the murder because Emma, the sister, was away. She was far away from the house when the
Yes,
murders
yes.
happened. The uncle was down the street. He was away from the house.
With
The
an
only
alibi.
Right, there were a lot of alibis. The only two people that really could have done it was Lizzie or the maid, or them two together,
Or an
or an outsider.
accomplice. Or there could have been an accomplice. Lizzie
Right.
might have hired somebody,
True.
concealed that person.
Right.
I'll allow for that. Yeah.
Right, but then you got to follow the money trail, and there was no money trail. So, I
Motive,
mean,
weapon, opportunity. She
right,
had all three.
right,
Motive being the big one.
right.
Yeah.
So
You
Shelley,
know,
are you drawn to this for reasons above and beyond all that?
I like true crime. I like the psychology
Yes.
angle. What would drive someone? Once,
Oh,
one night, I was privileged to have a Secret Service man from the White House, and we talked about, true crime, and he gave me the statistics when the parents, both of them are murdered. The likelihood of it being someone who lives in the house or a family member is above 50%. So
It's got to be.
statistically, things look bad for her just from that one fact alone.
and
And then,
also, um, it was
And
James
she
Fallon.
inherited a lot of money, so the
Yes.
so the money was
oh
a huge
yeah, oh
incentive.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a line in her family of killers though, like second cousins and stuff. The Cornell family, who owned Cornell University, dating back to the 1500s, had a number of axe murders in their family. So if you follow the family line,
That was related to Lizzie Borden's family.
yes,
It was
yes,
distant, yeah.
distant
Oh,
cousins. And
that
because, and
seems
the only
Wow.
reason,
that seems pertinent.
yeah, and the only reason they
Yeah.
figured this out because there's this famous neuroscientist called James Fallon, and he was doing a study of serial killers and brain. He was studying people's brains that were disposed to being a serial killer, and he did all these brain scans. And what makes somebody a sociopath? So they did a blind study of these brain scans, right? And a sociopath's brain scan looks a certain way. So they did it, and they chose his own family, right? And one of the brain scans showed the sociopath brain pattern, and it turned out it was his own. He was a
Ah,
sociopath. So
Ah,
he looked
oops.
at, this is crazy. It's a crazy story.
There's a story for you.
He looked down the
Yeah.
family tree, and he this is how they found out about the
He
Cornell
was a
family.
limb.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a distant cousin of Lizzie Borden also. So it runs in the family. I mean, it really does. She's predisposed, I think, of that. He's related in a distant way to Lizzie Borden also. It turns out.
well, when she was
Yeah.
about to go on
Crazy.
trial, they had qualified board examine Lizzie to see if she was. Um,
Is that the Taunton?
no, it's the Moulton Bachelder
Okay.
investigation to make sure she was mentally sound.
Mm.
And the story had come up that Lizzie's great aunt, who was only a Borden by marriage, so they weren't even thinking, she murdered her three children and then slit her own throat. This was Eliza Ann Borden, and they live right next door to the murder house where Lizzie lived. And so this case comes to light. Oh, look, there's killers in the family. Look at her great aunt Eliza. Threw her three kids in the cistern, tried to drown them. One survived, and then slits her throat with her husband's straight razor.
Mm.
I thought I had a
So
dramatic family.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
The
what's
dramatic
family's not
also
just
family.
so weird though,
the
like
family's not just wacky; it's 40 wacky.
yeah,
It's
and
really
what
wacky.
fascinated
Oh, I
me
see what you
also,
did there.
like
Yeah,
like if you
but
read all the diaries of her growing up as a child and people that known her, because the only way we know about this stuff is to read. And Shelley and I have both read thousands of pages of transcript, her friends writing about her, and in her childhood, a lot of people have said that she was peculiar, is the word they use. Peculiar. And
Peculiar.
I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I'm thinking that she was kind of, I think she had some kind of mental dysfunction in some way, right? I think she did. Like maybe she was a little slow, something was going on there. So I
Well, she fell off a horse and
hit her
had
head.
hit her head when she was a young girl. And I don't know if some damage was done, but one of her friends went to visit her to see how she was doing. And Lizzie was so hateful and nasty to
Yeah,
her that she said, I'm not going back to see her. She's so mean.
yeah,
Lizzie wasn't real popular and was quite moody, but she really wanted to move in the good social circles. And she volunteered for a lot of church groups and that, to try to better her situation. She felt that she deserved to move in more elite circles and kind of look down on her stepmother and her stepmother's family. The stepmother had a half sister who would come to visit, and Lizzie would walk by her like she wasn't even sitting there. And the half sister, whose name was Bertie Whitehead, said, Lizzie and Emma always acted like they were better than the rest of us. So they had a slight elitist kind of bearing. And they thought they should live in a better home and
but this
uh,
is why
yeah,
the story is so fascinating, because there's so many aspects of it, and
unexplored.
yeah,
Weren't they?
you
Weren't
just
they?
pick one
Weren't
and
Unexplored.
you
they?
go.
Wasn't she and even her the two of them, weren't they angry with their father for not spending more of his money
Oh,
to
absolutely,
sort
all
of
the time.
elevate their
Yeah,
lifestyles?
yeah, yeah. He
Yeah,
lived there,
he
but
was
their
too
house had
frugal for their
heating and
taste.
stuff. They really did have a lot of things in their house. Like people think, oh, he was such a miser, he didn't give them anything. He did though. He sent her on a trip
Hmm.
to Europe. They did have central heating in the house. They
They
had
had an
running
allowance.
water.
He gave them money
Yeah.
to
But
blow on
they
whatever they
wanted to live
wanted.
like the cousins up on the hill that lived in these
Yes.
Yeah,
mansions.
Mhm.
So, yes.
literally the cousins up on the hill.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
thing is, her father could have given that to them,
Oh, he absolutely could have. Yeah.
Mm.
but he was not a materialistic kind of person. And if it was good enough for him, uh, you know,
Yeah.
they could
So,
lump
look,
it pretty much.
we could go on for hours and
Oh
hours with
no.
this, as you know, like but I before we sign off, I first of all I want to thank you both so much for coming and like
It's
hanging out
lovely
tonight
to
with our
meet you both.
podcast.
Yeah, you
Really
too.
enjoyed it.
Yeah,
You
thank
too,
you.
um
Shelley.
and please, I both of you, I just want you to give us, what are you up to? Just let us know what you guys are up to, and so we can check you out when things come up. So Richard, what are you up to?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm always writing, prose stuff and stories, and lots of books coming out with stories that I'm in. There's a cool book out right now. Um, what is it? Body. Shoot, I'm forgetting the title. Forgive me. I'll think of it in a second. But there's that, and then I'm writing and producing a 8-hour Stephen King limited series. Oop,
Oh
lost you
wow,
there.
yeah, you told me about that.
Yikes.
Oh no, he's running off to somewhere.
Ah, whoa.
All we heard was, I'm sorry, but all we heard was this, like crashing. I was like, this show has been like
Wow, that was
kooky,
thrilling.
really kooky. I don't know.
It's
He'll be
better than
back.
anything on TV tonight for sure. Oh,
I
oh
can't
God.
possibly follow up with
Oh
that.
wait,
Well,
Craig
oh, I
can't
lost you
possibly
again.
follow
Sorry
what
about
just
that.
happened there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say the title of the book is Body Shocks,
Oh, okay, body
and it's
shots.
edited by a very old and dear friend of Craig and mine, Ellen Datlow.
Yeah,
And
wonderful editor.
anyway, that's an interesting book worth checking out. But what's consuming me right now is writing and producing an 8-hour Stephen King
Wow, I'm
limited
so happy
series.
for
Yeah,
you there. So where
thank
are we going to
you.
be able to see that Stephen King?
Well, I
Do
don't
you
know
know
yet.
yet?
We're very secretive. We're very secretive.
Okay, well, at least you're
Okay.
doing it. So let us know when it's out.
We're so
And
secretive you may not even know that it's out. That's how
Yeah,
secretive we are about it.
I don't know, Richard, you crack me up sometimes. Like,
that's the perfect
That's how
secret.
you'll know it was made. You won't even hear about it.
yeah.
Okay.
And Craig, what are you up to?
Well, I just released a couple of months ago. I just released my fourth album in the last 4 years. So I've been,
Nice.
that's the fourth album in my Art of Not Dying cycle, called Gratitude, and it came out. It's actually it came out as a It's when the physical CDs come out, it's going to be a 2 disc set. So
Yeah,
I just did that.
love it.
I just did. Rich and I are actually both supposed to be doing a story for an Italian publication.
Yeah.
If that's still happening, I sent my
I think
story in
it
like about a
is.
month
We
ago
have
or
this
so.
Italian publisher who's become very involved in a number of our careers. And Craig, myself, David J. Scal, named
Mm.
Alessandro Manzetti, one
Did
of the
you
great
say
names.
Yeah,
David J. Scow? David
Yes.
Scow?
David
Yes.
J. Scal. Do you know David?
I worship at his shrine.
Oh
Yes.
well, he'll be happy to hear that.
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I've been
David and Craig and I are long time friends, dear and
David
longtime
Scow was at
friends.
my first wedding with Craig.
I
Well, there
did
you go.
not know
Yeah.
that.
You remember that,
We've
Craig?
been friends. We've been friends for
Yeah,
probably about 40 years, maybe 45
Wow.
years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
This is
amazing.
more
Yeah,
of these sympathetic vibrations we're putting out
yeah.
there.
We can't
Yeah.
shake the guy. We cannot shake the guy. It's just
Yeah.
So yeah. But and then Craig's,
And
by the
I'm
way, Craig's 4 albums are a must-have. So however you can get your hands on them,
Yeah,
people should go
for
over them.
for our viewers
thank
that
you.
don't know, Craig has been fighting stage 4 prostate cancer for some 5 years now. I think
Five and
five
a half
years.
years. 5.5 years.
God bless you, my friend.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
I'm
we're
just in the
all right
fight,
there with
and
you. But the music is
you know,
amazing because it encompasses the stories that and the life that you have lived these last 5 years, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing piece of music, all of it. And Craig is actually working with me on some of my music recently.
yeah,
We sort
yeah.
of got back together, and we've been sending music via Dropbox back and forth. He
Oh
lays down
wow.
Yeah,
guitar
we
tracks.
send tracks, but we send tracks back and forth on
Yeah.
Dropbox, and
And Craig is
you know,
also coming up next year. I applied for a grant. Let's hope I get it. We are going to be working on a movie called Bursts about a siren in Staten Island, New York. And Craig wrote the script and
a short film,
a short
It's the first
film.
thing
And
Great.
I've written for the screen in a couple of years.
yeah, and it's
Um,
a really fantastic script. And I have recruited Lance J. Rea, who's an award-winning director, who's really phenomenal to direct it. So hopefully that'll all work out. God bless. I mean, God willing.
I was actually inspired for the story from Lance's his
For
nature photography,
yeah, it's
because
beautiful.
Lance has become a very successful Staten Island independent filmmaker, horror filmmaker.
Hmm.
But I saw his nature photography, uh, and it was truly just next level stuff.
Mm.
It was just like ethereal, like his shots of the Staten Island shoreline were just stunning,
Beautiful, stunning, really.
and that's where the idea for the movie first came from me. I was like, and I said, when we were talking about Lance directing, I said I want the movie to look like your nature photography,
Yeah,
uh, because it's just amazing stuff. Staten Island never looked so good,
yeah, it's true.
and
Yeah,
and it's
and it's a
interesting
really cool
because
story too. I love the story.
I was going to say about
Kim,
just to go back to Craig's albums for just a second. Craig
Sure.
went to the Berklee School of Music. Whoops, did
Yes,
I lose you guys? I did. So
he'll be
yikes,
back.
yeah, he'll be back. They always come back.
He'll be back. I don't know. Just like,
You got a lot on your plate, it sounds like.
Oh my
yeah,
God!
Yeah.
Here we go.
yeah.
Good to
Yeah.
be
What I was
busy.
going to say is that
Yeah.
Craig had gone to the Berklee School of Music, so these albums are they're very personal, of course, very intimate, but the music is very complex in its arrangements
Oh my
and
God,
really
yes.
very, very sophisticated and quite hypnotic. So I mean, I really encourage people to check it out. I was going to mention too, I'm going to have two more collections coming out next year too, two short story
Oh,
collections.
Oh
great.
my
That's
God.
fantastic.
I forgot to
So
mention that.
I am so friggin' excited about all of this. I mean, I'm just loving it, and I love you guys, and I just want to thank you so much for all your hard work you do to make us happy in life, that we get to see your art and read your
Ah,
books and listen to your music. It means a lot to me.
thank you, thank you,
Oh
thank you.
wow,
That's
yeah,
very
Well,
kind of you
Kim
to
and
say
I,
all that.
Yes.
thank you,
Yes.
Kim. Kim and I have known each other since high school. Believe it
yeah,
or not,
Oh,
Yeah.
we go way back,
yeah.
and
And we lived
I'm very
together for a
proud of.
year too.
Yeah, for one exciting year when I first
Yeah,
moved from Boston to New York City,
that was
the
nuts.
six of us lived in this little house in Rego Park, Queens.
I
Nuts.
just heard
Um,
about that. Yeah.
I
I just
remember
My
heard
John
about
goodness.
that.
Skip penny pitching for the electric bill. How much was that? $6.02. Here's the 2 cents. You know, it's like,
Good
I
times.
remember I
Yeah.
remember all
Yeah,
of
good.
us.
Yeah, good times. Yeah.
I
it
remember
really
all of
was
us
though,
in the
Shelley.
kitchen. I remember all of us in the kitchen, and I had one of those old boom boxes
Uh
that
huh.
had a little 2.5 inch black and white TV on it,
Oh yeah.
and then the speakers and the and everything, and we all sat around the kitchen table, and I kind of had it on my knees tilted up, and we watched Apocalypse Now
Yeah.
Oh
on
my
this
God.
on this little 2.5 inch black and white TV that had fantastic sound. So,
Do you know if
so,
John was smoking
so the
pot
rain on
back
the
then?
Village, the rain of the Valkyries playing, sounded fabulous, but the rest of it is just
John
on this
smoking
tiny.
pot? Come on, Kimber. That's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah! Don't let out the secret. That's our little secret about John and smoking pot.
I found a thing
Oh
of
God.
where we played and Timothy Leary came out. Do you remember that?
Oh dear
Oh my
God,
God.
yeah, yeah. Timothy Leary
Wow,
John
came
was,
out.
Timothy Leary.
it's
Okay.
like he had met Jesus. I mean, it was just
He was
extraordinary.
no, he was baked. It's like, we wanted
Baked.
him
Yeah.
to just, we wanted him to read this simple thing. It was we were doing the bridge, the soundtrack to the bridge,
Yeah, I
Right.
love that
Yeah.
performing it
soundtrack.
Right.
live at
Right.
DragonCon in Atlanta,
Right.
and we
And the
wanted
puppet
Timothy
company.
Leary
Wasn't
to.
the puppet company there, Craig?
Yeah, the
So there
Atlanta.
were these gigantic puppets that were 30 feet high or something.
My
And
Yeah,
Timothy Leary shows up. I guess he was, I don't know, he was just there. He materialized.
yeah, yeah,
And and John just looked like he had seen God, you know?
yeah. And we wanted him to read this just little thing, just kind of dramatic,
He
sort
did.
of
Yeah.
introduction to the story of the bridge and what the music we were about to perform.
yeah.
And Timothy Leary, he was so baked he could barely do it. He couldn't read. It's
But he did
like,
do he did do it, right?
He
Yeah.
did.
yeah, but he
Okay.
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
did it in this kind of like beatnik, free range riffing sort of way because
Completely.
he just kept
Completely.
going off track, because he
Wow.
couldn't
Yeah.
remember what the next line was, and
That's
so
right. That's right.
you know he needed more
Huh.
rim shots. It's
I mean, those are
But
great
we
memories,
played
though.
pretty
Like,
well.
you
We
have to
played
laugh
pretty
at
well
that.
considering we were surrounded by 30-foot puppets. And
That
who
sounds
had
so
oh
worked out
yeah.
surreal. Like,
routines
Unusual.
who had
Yeah.
worked out routines that we also had never seen until they showed up on stage.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
though. What were
Yeah.
the puppets for?
Well, we were near a university that had I guess, a very legendary puppet company, and they
Yeah,
had these puppets they were like Cirque du Soleil type puppets. They were like, I mean, I'm not
yeah,
exaggerating. I think they were 20 feet high, weren't they? At least.
some of them, yeah, yeah.
And they were
And then
walking
they
around,
had
and
they had the dancers all dressed
Yeah.
completely in black that had the skeletons.
yeah, right.
So there'd be a line of dancing skeleton puppets being puppeteered by these, puppeteers all in black who are
Jeez.
with them, and just all this just creative chaos on the stage,
Yeah.
and and we're just playing through the thing. And at one point, I
Yeah.
realized that the skeleton puppets were actually stomping on my effects pedals, to my guitar in
Wow. Well, they were
the
dancing to
middle
the
of a
music. I
song, and
remember. I remember that.
I'm like, oh shit!
Oh my
Yeah, the
God,
Yeah,
it
they
puppets
were
were
sounds
dancing to
dancing
the
to the
music. They were
music.
dancing to the song. They were
They
dancing
were.
to the song "Big Dumb Bastard,"
Oh
That's
yeah, I
right.
know that
That's
song.
exactly
which had
right.
this
That's
Well,
a
they
skip
were
song.
big and they were dumb. So for them, it was like
yeah,
I
Oh, it
recall.
sounds like
it was quite the
Macy's
evening. It was quite
It
the
was.
evening.
Macy's Thanksgiving parade.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think we
so
have it on
look,
tape
I
somewhere.
at the end of every
Yep.
Lizzie Borden podcast, we draw names for viewers that viewed. So we put it in a jar and for something from the Lizzie Borden shop. So I am drawing a name out of our little thing. So we got, is it Joka Jack? Oh, John Jack. John Jack. Okay,
That's a new
so
viewer. Yeah.
okay, so that's one, and we'll do one more. Okay,
What
this
are we
one
doing?
goes to
Yeah, locked out.
Judy Baker,
Oh, Judy.
who's a
Yes.
regular. Okay,
She's a
so
regular. One last time, I think.
yeah, these two, you are going to get the famous Lizzie Borden hatchet Christmas ornament for your tree. So I will be sending that out to you. And actually, you, Craig, and RC will be getting one too. I'll be sending them out to you so you can put it on your
Oh,
Christmas tree.
Excellent.
hey, fabulous.
I'm sure you will love that.
That's fantastic.
Nothing like a bloody hatchet on the tree, right?
At
Yeah.
Christmas, nothing says holiday cheer
Like a
quite
bloody
the
hatchet.
same way.
You betcha.
That's for sure.
So again, I want to
Oh.
thank you both. It's been a lot of fun. I hope, someday we can do this again, maybe on another occasion.
Well, we will be because we're going to be starting the script
You
right after January.
Shelley,
know.
Shelley.
You gotta
I
love
love
her.
it.
She really
We can work with
pushes
this, I'm
forth.
telling you. Yeah, yeah.
She's a determined woman.
Yes.
I'm
Well,
on
nice.
board. Yeah,
I love Shelley.
absolutely.
Okay, so we're signing off, and I want to thank all the viewers and fans out there of Lizzie Borden, and also if you want to follow RC and Craig, they do have Facebook and Instagram.
And Amazon. Just go to Amazon.
Oh, and Amazon,
Yeah, Amazon.
Amazon.com.
We've
Both
got
of
all
these
of
guys.
our films and our books are all on Amazon.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're all over Amazon. So RC
Yeah.
Matheson and Craig Spector, Amazon. Go get their books.
And you can
especially-
also, I have a music site which is simply craigspectormusic.com.
Yes. Actually, I'll put the sites up on this
Hear all my
chat.
Do
when
the
I
links
leave
for us,
tonight,
yeah.
I'll put all the information up, and then they can go and get it. Richard, your last book was
Zoopraxis.
Zoopraxis, and collection of short stories. Brilliant, and
Brilliant,
I got a
wonderful.
copy. I love it.
Thank you. Hey, Shelley, I have one last question for you.
Man, we just can't leave.
The pillow back there, is that Lizzie or is that Maud Adams?
That would be Lizzie. I have Lizzie
That's
over
Lizzie.
my yeah, I have
Well,
Lizzie
I mean, you're a
over
Maud
my-
Adams fan too, I'm sure, right? You must
big,
be.
big Maud
Yeah.
Adams fan.
It almost from
Yeah.
this distance, it almost looked like Maud Adams.
At the corner behind my head is a standee, a life size. She was 5'3" of Lizzie that I take to my book signings. And the pillow, my daughter also has, a Lizzie gift shop, and we've done Lizzie Borden paper dolls, and I've done
Oh,
everything.
Yeah.
I've done everything
Just-
because your dad told me to. He said, "Stretch yourself, kid,
He said, "Merchandise, baby,
Yeah.
merchandise."
and
Merch,
copyright
baby,
it."
merch.
Just a quick note on Shelley's book, the paper doll book. If you ever, like as a kid, we used to do these cutouts of clothing with the little tabs on them, and you had that cardboard cutout as little girls, and we used to cut out the clothes and put with the tabs and put them on the doll. So she did a book with Lizzie Borden. Her daughter's a graphic artist, so when they read the trial transcripts and everything, they gathered all the information they could from reading the descriptions of what Lizzie was wearing at the trial, and they designed the book of Paper Dolls,
It's
which
it's
shows
the
the actual
story.
dresses.
Yeah, it's the
It's
Incredible.
story through
beautiful. It's
clothing.
really,
Yeah,
and honestly, it really taught me something, because the one thing that I never got was that Lizzie that morning was wearing this light blue cord dress with a small pattern on it. And I
in
thought it was
navy
just
blue.
one
Yeah.
little emblem on her thing, but it turned out that it was a pattern all through the dress, which made a big difference if there was blood spatter. So her book changed my story about, yeah, she could do it because you wouldn't see the blood spatter on the dress.
Amazing.
So
Maybe.
yeah, but
Meant to be. Meant to be.
yeah, the book's beautiful. I love the book. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
I'm sayonara.
Thanks
Sayonara,
for
guys.
coming, guys. I really enjoyed this a lot.
And
Yeah.
listen,
Take care.
guys, have a
Thanks,
happy
guys.
holiday. Have a
Nice to
Happy
meet you, Shelley.
holidays.
yeah.
Same here.
Richard,
I'll
great
be
to see you
talking.
again.
You too, pal. Take care, guys.
All right.
Goodbye.
Have a good one. Good
Okay.
night.
You too. Bye
Good
bye.
night.
Bye bye. Thanks.